Welcome to my channel. My name is Corinne, and today I wanted to show you how to make this lovely picture. I'm really excited about him. And I just want to share some tips and tricks and how to improve your art skills. I'm using pan pastels for the background and Prismacolor pencils on Pastelmat. So before we get to that though, I'm going to trace out the picture, and of course I sped it up so that we could get past this quickly. If you've already traced out your image on your paper, you can skip to 5 minutes and 30 seconds. That's where I start the coloring. If you've never traced out your pictures before, this is what I prefer. There are different methods, which are freehand, tracing, and a projector. Now, I've done freehand most of my life, so I know that I can do it, but this just saves me tons of time, especially if I'm doing a commission and it's a pet and they want it to look just like their pet. So I just prefer the tracing method over anything else. So there are some steps here that I didn't go over. I printed this picture off of my computer, and then I took it and I taped it facing out on my window since I don't own a light box, and I covered the whole back with white pastels so that whenever I flip it back over on my dark paper and I trace, there will be a white outline for me to go by. Okay, so now that the line is fully transferred, I'm going to go around and blot out some of the pastels that kind of got on the rest of the paper from me rubbing my arm on it. Just clean it up a little bit. So this is what the pan pastels look like. They all come in separate little cases, different colors. And they're really soft, they're really nice to use, and it comes with this squishy sponge to help apply it to your paper. And I did speed this up too because this process does take a little while, but it does give you some really nice coverage, especially for backgrounds. A lot of people will use it to do backgrounds. Some people will also use it to do inside of their subject's face, adding lights and darks for shadows, and then using their colored pencils over top of it, which is really awesome for that. I definitely cannot complain, and this is only my second time using these, and I'm just super impressed with it. I really enjoy this mottled look that the pan pastels give. Kind of doing that on purpose. I really like that chunky kind of look. Originally I was going to use a black paper, and then I just kind of fell in love with this Pastelmat. It has such a great texture to it, and it just takes so many layers. It's just an amazing paper. If you haven't tried it, I recommend it highly. It does take a lot of layers though, which the pan pastels are really good for just filling in those little gaps, because it's not like sandpaper, but it's a little more rough than your average smooth Bristol board or anything like that. So what I'm doing first is I'm going to block in the pupils with black. And I'm using Prismacolor Premier pencils, if you didn't catch that earlier. These are my favorite pencils. An important thing to know too is I like to work from the left side to the right, because sometimes when you drag your hand across it will smudge, it will smear things, and you don't want that to happen. Now I'm coming in with a burnt ochre. I'm just laying down a base color. Now I'm going to use goldenrod, which is one of my favorite colors. And I'm going to just create these mid-tones. Just keep small strokes to kind of blend the burnt ochre in with this goldenrod. And now I'm using yellow ochre just to kind of brighten it up a little bit, give some depth, and just different colors are always good. You want to layer lots of layers. The trick to colored pencils is just using lots and lots of layers. Obviously if you do too many it gets kind of muddy, so you have to really watch. But Pastelmat is really good for that. It takes tons of layers. Some more burnt ochre in there, just around the edges where the shadow is from the eyelid. I'm just going to keep working that and blending it together. This is dark umber, and I'm just adding shadow where the eyelids would hang over to create, the depth of the eye. Just set back in. And now I'm going to go in with some black, make that pupil a little bit darker, and then some white where the shine is. And then I'm going to add some white down here just to give it that wet look. And to brighten up that yellow just a wee bit. Now I'm going to add black all the way around the eye. If you look at the reference photo, it's very dark. And we want to try to stick with the reference photo as much as possible. This process takes a long time. If you've never worked with colored pencils before, it is a very, very slow process. But it's well worth it in my opinion. Now I'm grabbing warm gray 70% and I'm doing the lower eyelid. And back and forth to black and the warm gray 70%. Just going over my lines, trying to make them disappear. And darkening around the eye. Keep checking your reference photo. Make sure you've got the hair going in the right direction and the shadows in the right spots. Back to warm gray, 70%. Here's dark umber again, just kind of darkening around the eye, just giving it more depth, more color. And black. Back to dark umber. I always find myself clutching my pencils in my left hand and drawing with my right hand because I switch back and forth so quickly. I don't have time to dig through my pencil case. And back to black. Just creating some shadows underneath the eyelid. Trying to separate it out so that it looks real. Now I'm going to use cream and I'm going to come into the hair that is right underneath the eye. It's kind of in the corner of the eye. And this is going to be my base color. And I will do highlights with white. Now I find with other papers, when I use Bristol or I use Strathmore papers, if I use a light color pencil in a dark, like black, usually it smears or it comes off on my light colored pencil and I get like spots almost through my light colors. Now sometimes that can be helpful, but in this case it's not. So the Pastel Mat is fantastic for having dark colors and then putting light over top of it. Like I said, it just takes so many layers and it's pretty amazing. Now I'm in with a light umber. In the reference photo, there's just a little bit of a dark area. It's not dark, it's just darker. And then there's the burnt ochre. I'm going to add some more dark umber just to give it more depth in this hair on the side here. Now just underneath the eye there's a really dark spot. It's underneath the hair, and I'm pretty heavy-handed anyway, which I try not to be, and it's a really hard habit to break. But this area I am going to do a little bit heavier. But once again with Pastel Mat, it's pretty easy to go over top of it with light colors. So here's my highlight. I'm doing some white in the corner of the eye just to lighten it up a little bit. Just gonna work my way through doing this hair under the eye. See how it's going over top of that dark area so easily, even the black that's above it, and it's not smearing it in, it's keeping it nice and crisp. I'm doing kind of like a flicking motion, like I'm not holding my pencil down, I'm flicking it because hair's like thick at the bottom and it kind of tapers towards the end. And now I'm adding some more light umber just in those areas that I did the white. I don't want it to be too bright, so I'm just going back over it. And now I'm going back in with the black, and I'm going to start darkening where I had the dark umber, but I'm just going to kind of darken just a couple little areas in between the hair just to set them apart. I'm grabbing my white again, and I'm going to go back through, making like a dotting motion because the hair here on animals are so short it almost just looks like specks. Like it almost has no direction. Can't really tell sometimes. And I have some light umber in there. Just kind of basing it out, putting some more white highlights in. Still dotting a little bit. And the flicking motions with the hair is very helpful. Makes it more realistic. Now with the dark umber, I'm going back to the up to the eyelid. And then getting this shadow right here because I'm done down below. I wanted to switch. You'll notice that I kind of jump around a little bit, so I apologize for that. I'm very scatterbrained when it comes to my art. I just kind of jump around all over the place. Go across the eyelid a little bit with my dark umber. Just fill in some spots here. Still doing the flicking motion with the dark umber. It's like the eyebrow area. Watch the directions of the hair, I can't stress that enough. If you look at them in the reference photo, just keep checking it just to make sure you're on the right track. It's very helpful. Over top of the dark umber, I'm going to use some light umber. Just to lighten it up a little bit. Give it the appearance of hairs. Still using the flicking motion in the direction that the hair is going. This is French Gray 50%, and I'm using it as a base for the corner of the eye, like where the nose is. Keep just double checking my reference photo to make sure I'm on the right track. There's some light umber. I'm just going to use it to blend with that brown that's right up top and near the base. And since the light umber was in my hands, I'm adding just a little bit more up top of the eyebrow and down again. Now with more flicking motions, I'm just kind of going where the hair, the direction of the hair. Now I've got some burnt ochre. Still doing the flicking motion. I'm trying to blend that dark with the light here. And now I have the white, bringing back the highlight. Very light strokes on this. I don't want it too bright of a highlight. I just want to give it the appearance of hair. Back in with the French Gray 50. Just adding some more down here as a base. And I'm going along the eyelid, the upper eyelid, just to give it a little bit of a highlight that's not too harsh. And then down into the nose area. Some burnt ochre. Still just blending in the gray, the French Gray 50 and the white, and trying to make it look more natural. Flicking motions and blending little circles. This is the Warm Gray 70 again. Still working in the same area. He's got some interesting like spots on his nose. They're sort of abstract, so it's hard to figure him out. If you see me rotating my pencil a lot, I just recently realized this when I watched my videos, that it comes naturally. But if you don't, the reason why I do it is because I'm trying to get the sharpest point at all times. So I constantly am rotating my pencil to make sure I have a sharp point. This is that weird spot where the hair is real short, so it's almost like polka dotty. And I'm coming back in with black. If you look at the reference photo, he's got some weird marks right here. And I'm just lightly darkening them up. I don't want to do a hard line. Going to the top of the eyelid, just some light strokes. I'm darkening them up just a little bit. His eyelids are pretty dark underneath with lighter hairs on top, so I am going to come in here a little bit heavier. And I'll even come back later, probably in the next tutorial, and darken that up even more. Still rotating my pencil, doing flicking motions as well. Now I'm coming in with the yellow ochre, and I'm going to lighten up some of these areas in here. Still with the flicking motion, not too hard. Now I'm coming in with highlights with the white up at the top of the eyebrow and down. The whole time I'm just switching back and forth between these different colors. The highlights, the lowlights, the midtones, black, burnt ochre, dark umber, some light umber, and now I'm going with peach. Peach is my base color on the bridge of the nose, kind of the eyebrow area. Now I'm going in with some light umber just to blend that peach in just a little bit. Like I said, this is a very slow process. If you've never done a portrait like this before, it does take hours.